Federal government tasked financial market experts on housing. NNPC records crude oil gas sales of $219.75 million in May. OPEC postpones 60th anniversary celebration meeting in Baghdad, and Central Bank of Nigeria folds calls for Emefiele's resignation, says it remains committed to meeting genuine forex demands. Details of these and more on Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we're reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I'm Leakating Babatunde. Now let's start the business of the day. In the quest to close the housing deficit in the country, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has tasked financial market experts to support government's efforts by developing an appropriate housing finance model that will significantly transform the housing sector on a large scale. State House correspondent Gideon Ifade reports.
During another meeting with stakeholders in Nigeria's oil and gas industry under the auspices of Independent Petroleum Producers Group, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo assured the group of the Buhari administration's commitment to the security of lives and property, noting that government is open to suggestions that would lead to permanent resolution of the crisis. The Vice President also called for collaboration between the federal government and other stakeholders in the oil and gas sector in advocating for a just energy transition regarding the global net zero emission target in 2050. The group commended the Vice President's peace efforts in the Niger Delta in 2016 that ensured peace and security of investments in the region at a time when the nation suffered a recession. Chairman of Group Abdulrazak Issa, while soliciting the support of the federal government in securing investments in the sector, disclosed that the crisis resolution model deployed by the Vice President in 2016 will be replicated by the group to address emerging security threats on oil and gas facilities in the southeast.
Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has faulted claims from certain quarters calling for the resignation of the CBN governor over issues relating to the exchange rate. Director Corporate Communications of the Apex Bank, Osita Nwanisobi, who stated this in Abuja, alleged that those behind such calls were only pursuing their selfish agenda fueled by those who had long benefited from rent-seeking practices in the parallel forex market. Nwanisobi also assured that the CBN remains committed to meeting the foreign exchange request of travelers with legitimate needs as they relate to travel allowances, payment of tuition and medical fees, among other invisibles. He noted that there was enough supply of foreign exchange in the banks to meet legitimate demands for forex. And still with the central bank, it says it will consider approving foreign exchange for customers, of course, with legitimate demands, but this time around that exceeds transaction limits as long as such applications meet stipulated requirements. Governor of the bank, Godwin Emefiele, who stated this recently while addressing issues around market volatility, insisted that it would no longer allocate dollars to bureau de change BDC operators. It's been 8 weeks since the declaration by Governor Emefiele that the CBN will no longer sell forex to bureau de change operators and advised those with genuine needs to go to deposit money banks. He accused bureau de change operators of economic sabotage and illicit financial flows, but since then, the parallel market has remained volatile. On the activities of Aboki FX, Godwin Emefiele described the outfit as criminal and illegal.
We are finalizing our investigation and must warn these companies that patronize him that they are also going to face our wrath. The CBN Act Section 2 does make it clear that only the central bank can determine the value of the naira.
Godwin Emefiele said the CBN does not recognize any forex market window besides the investor and exporters windows. On the program this morning, we're looking at issues around the foreign exchange market, and I have joining me Isa Aliu Shata, financial analyst, and he is the vice president, Konga Pay. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Are you a musician?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I would love to be one someday.
Okay, because we're already familiar with the Shatters, so we thought to ask
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. So, straight to the business, what will be your thoughts on this particular decision by the CBN to hold sales of Forex to BDCs?
No, I think it's long overdue, if you ask me, because if you listen through all the reports that we've been getting, which I think the security operatives need to actually investigate and bring people to justice. I think a couple of months ago, the Dubai security intelligence actually tracked some nefarious activities as regards the Boko Haram activities that we're having in the northeast, and of course even some banditry activities we're having in the northwest to some individuals who have connection with the Bureau de Change people. And I feel that by now we would have investigated that through, and in collaboration with, of course, the CBN, to ensure that we apprehend these criminals, because they are actually destroying our society. They are using these illicit funds to actually fund terrorism, and I think it's against any global financial standard when you talk about framework that guides the forex, basically. So it's long overdue, because I also feel that at the time they were operating, they were under-regulated, because if they were really regulated the way the core financial institutions are regulated, most of these loopholes, would have been identified, basically. And I see no reason why you sell dollar at a rate, to certain individuals, and they go out to sell it at, over-bloated figures. So for me, it was milking the economy, and it's rather late than never, and I really applaud the CBN for actually having the balls to come out with this initiative to go after, these funny individuals. And that's not also saying that most of all these people participating in the Bureau de Change business are actually criminals. Okay. In every society or in every community, you definitely have, or you identify some bad eggs, and I think those bad eggs have actually increased over time. That's the reason why we are seeing that a lot of criminal activities are being perpetrated, through this platform. And at the same time, there are also claims that some political individuals who siphon money from the government coffers actually convert it, into these foreign currencies.
Yeah, the CBN governor said that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they cover it, they will call it layering. So they layer the money back into the system using these platforms. And the more they do this, the more the economy suffers, the more the naira keeps suffering, because we are basically a one. There's a word I'm trying to pick. Okay, we are actually a mono economy country where we overdepend on the sale of crude oil, and if you look at what happened, especially during the COVID-19 era, where we couldn't even make any sale, you will see that the price of crude oil actually crashed, and we suffered it because we need liquidity in the system, and the only avenue we have to bring liquidity in is suffering, because there is a global price that we don't have control over that is actually affecting the economy, right? So this is the main reason why I feel we need to begin to look at our economy, where we consume what we produce and we produce what we consume.
Okay, because looking at where you just birthed, we're having to deal with extreme high exchange rates in the parallel market. So one would be tempted to ask, is it worth it?
Yeah, I actually predicted this like a year ago when I was on a TV platform, when they asked me about the continuous increase of, the dollar. I predicted that it's even going to get to 600 naira if we continue the way we are operating. And my prediction is actually coming true, almost a year after I made that prediction. The reason is, just like I was mentioning, that we operate a mono economy, right? And we over-concentrate on the crude oil. Like, yeah, we are trying to diversify into the agricultural sectors and all that, but how much more have we scaled up in terms of, promoting exportation? Because what we are currently seeing is that there's a large importation of goods that we consume here, and we are over-depending on different economy to survive. Most of the things we consume are actually imported. And in as much as we continue to have that dependency, we will continue to have, this ripple effect of the naira keep, trying to struggle against the dollar. So what I feel we need to do is to begin to look inward and continue to promote local content. There are a lot of activity that is happening currently on the e-commerce site. Yes, e-commerce site is a marketplace where everybody wants to sell. Merchants are, coming up with different ideas with their products and all that. If we can encourage that space and we ensure that we are consuming what we produce and we are producing what we consume, then that will, limit the pressure a bit on the naira. Again, look at the institution, our schools. Rather, we are not really giving it that much priority that it deserves. That's why you see that a lot of people are taking their words outside the country to school, because they feel they get quality education outside the country. So we really need to look at some basic policies in the country so that it will not have a direct or indirect, effect with what is happening in the financial space, most especially with the naira. Look at the number of people who go outside for medical treatment. Look at the number of Nigerians that are actually based outside the country. You see, the amount of money that actually exchanged hands last year in the cross-border payment was almost about $14.7 trillion.
Wow.
Just only in Africa. I've not even put UK, US, Dubai, China, India, where we normally buy most of our goods. Wow. But I'm talking about the African continent. That's money moving in from Nigeria to Egypt, to Ghana, to South Africa, to most of all these,
and
to Kenya.
Basically schools, health.
Yeah, school, health related, and business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because of course, we are in a global community right now. Like I said, a lot of things are actually happening on the e-commerce side. So we have two big e-commerce sites in Nigeria, and they are big commerce sites for Africa, right? And a lot of activities are actually happening there. So that's the reason why you are seeing that there's large inflow of Forex into the country. And I also feel the CBN have taken good initiative in bringing up the international remittance license. That is, regulated. It's a bit controlled. And you can see that every activity that happens on that platform, CBN will be able to monitor it because it's highly regulated, right? Because before you can actually have an international remittance license, you need to have a 2 billion naira capitalization, which means you are serious to go into the business. And I feel that is how we should approach any financial policy or financial framework that we want to establish that has to do with Forex, basically.
Okay, so for people like you in that financial space, let me just ask a very, very straight question. Why is it that we cannot just pay directly to these institutions, for instance, from our Nigerian banks? Why do we have to convert the naira to the dollar to take them out if there's already that channel that you can actually, from your account, just pay out this money?
Yeah, this is the question we should be asking those who actually patronize these institutions. Because just like the CBN has said, if whatever you want to do is legitimate, right, you need to approach the proper institution that actually have this right, or rather have been given the responsibility to cater for your demands. So you begin to ask yourself, like, what exactly is happening back door? So that also points to the fact to say that the CBN is actually right when they talk about criminal elements, hiding under the guise that they want to pay for probably tuition fee, but because the kind of volume that is involved when you talk about criminal activities is huge, so it will not go through when you want to pass it through, like for school fees, for medical bills. It's going to raise, question marks. And of course, you should expect that the financial institution that you are approaching will trigger the regulator, will trigger the security. So people don't really want that to happen, so they back off. There are those also who want to probably acquire properties, right? So, but if you really want to do any business that is genuine, right, you go through the appropriate channels. You approach the financial institution. Yes, I hear sometimes they talk about the bureaucratic nature of actually moving into this financial institution and getting things done. Yeah, if you have good, solid claims, we can come and see how we can retweak, the processes to ensure that the end-to-end process is actually streamlined to serve you right. And I think regulators want to do that, for you if that complaint becomes higher. Now, if you cannot approach the core financial institution like the banks and the rest, you can also approach the international remittance space, for you to do whatever transaction you want to do. So I don't really see the reason why you want to convert money before you do transaction. You should have your DOM account. And from your, just like you rightly said, from your DOM account, you should be able to pay this money directly to the institution that wants to get this money.
Okay, the governor also raised some concerns rather on Abuja FX and the activities there. He was visibly enraged coming out with those positions. What would be your take on that?
Yeah, because if you look at the Abuja FX, right, is a platform where most people go to look at the current rate of different currencies that we have. And they sort of try to mirror the role that CBN is playing, because people are supposed to go on CBN website or the platform that CBN has provided to see the official rate, for these currencies. And if the rate that they are displaying is actually different from the one that CBN is, displaying as the official rate, there will be a conflict of interest. You are trying to override the authority that actually have the statutory right, to regulate, the process. So you can't overshadow a CBN of any nation, right? And a lot of people are also using that platform to perpetrate crime, because from that platform you go directly into different people who offer these services, using that platform. Nobody is saying you cannot do business in a genuine way, but when you are doing business, you also need to guide, the business you are doing to ensure that criminal elements don't actually use that as an opportunity to perpetrate crime. So it's even your own responsibility to trigger any alarm, raise alarm to the regulators to ensure that you are reporting those who are having irregular transactions or people who are having voluminous transactions that are questionable. So I feel that CBN is actually doing the right thing, and it's time that the Abuja FX started to understand that we want to sanitize the process, and we also want to make the Naira stronger and better.
Okay, so quickly before I let you go, how would you describe the effects of seeing the official window somewhere and then the parallel market window somewhere? How is this affecting transactions between institutions out there and Nigerians here? We're paying on things for things on Alibaba, on Amazon, and all over the place, and then you discover that even when you go to some of the embassy sites, their rates aren't actually the CBN rates. How do we compare this?
Yeah, I think it is time that CBN also needs to look into this space, because if you have an official rate that is contrary to the rate that is in the market, in the parallel market, right, it's actually confusing, and a lot of people will be also taking advantage of that situation, to increase prices, to adjust prices, which will not augur well for the economy. So if you say the official rate is XYZ, you need to cascade that down to every authority or every institution that needs to, key into that regulatory framework for it to work. And there should be a monitoring and evaluating team that can also go on to see that most of all these activities are monitored and they are reported where they have gone against the laid down rules and regulation. The sooner the better we start doing this, the better it will be for all of us.
Okay, I must sincerely thank you, Mr. Aliu Shatta, for coming on Business Express. And of course, Isa Aliu Shatta is the Vice President at Konga Pay. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So we move on now to Surviving COVID-19, a series for today, and we present to you the story of a vulcanizer, Abbas Hakiko.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Since where COVID-19 starts, there is nothing move everywhere. We just struggle. Now, hardly to get 2,000 naira. I can make like 2,000, 3,000 naira daily. As a family man, person will struggle. I'm hearing it, but even I'm praying every day it should be my own turn too. Because when government wants to do something for you, you will pray. When you reach your own turn, you thank God that God do it for you too. You know, everything is going up. When I get like a 1.5 million upward or something like that, I will thank God. I will start a business with it so that I will go and bring tires, sell and buy so that everything will be okay. Another person too, because once when I don't rise, I will call some guys because there's some guys everywhere now. They don't have a job to do. I can even invite them. You people should come and learn this work. From there, I will empower them too so that then they will grow.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank.
OPEC Secretary General Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo has announced the postponement of the 60th anniversary celebrations of OPEC slated to hold 30th of September in Al-Shabaab Hall in Baghdad, where OPEC was birthed. OPEC Secretary General said though the government of Iraq had agreed to host OPEC's 60th anniversary celebrations on the 30th of this month at the hall in Baghdad, he received a letter from Ihsan Abdul Jabbar Ismail, Minister of Oil, Iraq, announcing the postponement of the scheduled celebrations. According to him, it was a difficult decision for Iraq, given its eagerness to welcome all OPEC members, ministers and delegations, as well as other producers in the Declaration of Cooperation, DOC, to Baghdad, where OPEC was created on the 14th of September 1960. Ismail says his country remains ready and willing and able to host an anniversary event, having completed all the necessary arrangements, and this will now, however, take place in the first quarter of the year 2020. And we commodities market, where gold prices were flat on Tuesday as investors adopted a risk-averse stance amid caution ahead of U.S. Federal Reserve's policy meeting, where the central bank is expected to provide cues on when it will begin tapering its assets purchases. Nigerian stocks began the week slow, recording a marginal decline that drove the all-share index down by 0.1%. And away from home, Japan's Nikkei 225 falls by 2% as investors monitored developments. Boss Abel reports.
Global stocks in early Tuesday trade are shaking off the grip from the bears after markets got off to a poor start, closing lower on Monday amid investor fears surrounding embattled property developer China Evergrande Group and concerns about the contagion risks for the wider Chinese and global economy. European stocks opened higher on Tuesday, bouncing back from Monday's losses. DAX is seen around 0.76% high, FTSE 0.77%, and Francis CAC 40 1.14%. Shares in Asia Pacific were mixed in Tuesday trade as investors continue monitoring the situation surrounding embattled developer China Evergrande Group. The Nikkei closed 2.17% lower at 29,839.71. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was fractionally positive and Shanghai Composite also topped 0.19%. U.S. stock futures were higher in early morning trading on Tuesday, following a major sell-off on Wall Street that resulted in the S&P 500's worst day since May. Dow Jones futures jumped 213 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures both traded in positive territory. For African markets, investors are optimistic the bulls will take over from Monday's losses with a positive resumption of South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40. Boss Able, Business Express.
And it's a wrap on the program this morning. The Business Express returns tomorrow at 3 p.m. My name is Leah Katung Babatunde. Do have a nice day.